Hello friends, I am Shane Desai and in today's video we are going to discuss one of the most important topic of English literature, and that is the impact of French Revolution on literature. Now, as we know that French Revolution is one of the significant event in the history and it laid a long-lasting impact on English literature. So in this video we are going to particularly see its effect and impact on English literature. Yes, now many of you might be knowing that what French Revolution actually is. But in this slide we will try to, in a nutshell, very quickly see that what French Revolution was. The first point, French Revolution started in 1789 and continued till 1799 in France. So this is the timeline or the time period of French Revolution. It started in the year 1789 and it almost lasted for 10 years and it was started in France, right? By the time King Louis, who belonged to Bourbon family, was at the throne. So King Louis was at his reign, or he was ruling on France by the time when French Revolution took place. He became king at the age of 20 years and he was married to Austrian princess named Marie Antoinette. So when King Louis became king, he was in his early age, he was only of 20 years old and he was married to an Austrian princess named Marie Antoinette. The condition of France was very crucial during the time. All the finances were drained out and the economy was completely crashed. So yes, now by the time this French Revolution took place, the economical condition of France was very much like totally crashed and it was shattered. The economy of France was shattered, and the reason is that the French country or the France helped United States of America or America to be independent, and for that reason all of their resources, all of their economy was totally shattered or crashed. And here we can see the fifth point. The reason is France helped America to gain independence from the Great Britain. So as they helped America, all their resources were drained out, they were crashed, the economy was totally shattered. Sixth point, the young king imposed additional taxes on the general public. So now, as we know that the economy was crashed, it was shattered. So in order to maintain the economy, the young prince King Louis imposed the tax, forcefully imposed the tax on the general public. And by the time there was also class division. We will see in the further point that there were three classes: the clergymen, the second one is the noble people, and the ordinary people, right? So these were the three class division in the society. Adding more to the harsh situation, there was a class division in French society, right? As I told just before this point that there were class division. Now clergymen were those people who were very much religiously active. The religious people were known as they belonged to clergy class, and the clergymen were having more respect than the noble people or the royal people. They were having a kind of equally respect to the royal family. And the second class was the noble people who belonged to the royal family, the king, queens, and all those who worked under the king. And then the third was the ordinary class or the lower class people. Even the feudal system worsened the society, and hence there was a substantial crisis. Population growth and inflation was a bonus, right? So the feudal system worsened the society, and hence there was a substantial crisis. Now what is this substantial crisis? Substantial crisis is when the general public has to survive, even to live, even to gain their livelihood. So this situation is called a substantial crisis, and due to the feudal system, the rich were getting more richer and the poor were getting more poorer. So due to this, the economy of France also was in its worst condition, and the population growth and the inflation, the price rise or price hike due to the substantial crisis was a bonus. So as a result, middle class emerged and raised the flag of equality, liberty and fraternity. So as we know that there were only lower class people, and due to this a new class was emerged in the country of France, and that class was middle class. Now the middle class people were a kind of very educated people. They were indulged, they were involved in trade and businesses, and they were very learned men. So all these people emerged and they raised a flag, or they started this motto of equality, liberty and fraternity, and that's how French Revolution began in 1789 after the involvement of the middle class people. Now, revolution and literature. Oh, there is a typo in the spelling literature. Please ignore that. So now we will see that what revolution, due to this revolution, what changes were made in literature. So this is a kind of introduction, and then we will move forward. The first point, the French Revolution is one of the most important event in the history of England and English literature. Though it started in France, it had a long-lasting effect on the various other countries of Europe. Right. So this is one of the most significant event in the English literature and the history of England as well. And it was started in France, but it still had very long lasting impact and effect on various other countries of Europe. Soon after the French Revolution, the Romantic Age began in English literature, and all the first generation Romantic poets observed the changes and repercussions of it and were deeply influenced by it. So if we see the time period of this French Revolution and the timeline of history of English literature, so exactly after French Revolution, the Romantic Age or the Romantic Revival was started in English literature. As we know that Romantic Age started in the year 1798 after the publication of one of the collaborative work of William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge, that is the Lyrical Ballad. So exactly soon after French Revolution, the Romantic Age started in the history of English literature, and definitely it will have its impact. The revolution will have its impact and effect on the Romantic Age, and we can also say that this revolution kind of molded and gave a shape to the characteristics of Romantic Age. Third point, William Wordsworth, S.T. Coleridge, P.B. Shelley and Lord Byron were the poets who were highly influenced by this revolution, right? So the first two, William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge, can be considered as the first generation Romantic poets, and the second one, P.B. Shelley and Byron, are the second generation Romantic poet. So these four, and other than these poets like Robert Southey, they all were very highly influenced and impacted by this French Revolution. Due to this revolution, the poets used to write genuinely and self-consciously what they felt and were touched by. So yes, after all these poets had seen the result and the repercussions of this revolution, and after this revolution they very genuinely wrote what they felt, what they were touched by. And we can see that all the Romantic poets were following their own intuitions. They were not following a certain rules, or they were not merely copying the characteristics or the rules of their previous ages, but they were very genuinely, very self-consciously were writing what they felt. They were writing through their intuitions, and they were following their own thoughts and beliefs. Fifth point, the revolution allowed the poets and the people of this era to explore more and new psychological and mysterious aspects of human life. Now, yeah, sure, all the poets, all the writers of Romantic Age had observed the changes, the repercussions, the results of French Revolution, and due to that they had got a new idea about human life, about human being. New psychological impact was been observed by all these Romantic poets. They learned a new mysterious aspect, that what changes had happened in human psychology, what a human being can do after experiencing such crisis, when he is in the situation where he need to struggle even to gain livelihood. So all these events, all these experiences kind of molded all the Romantic poets, and all the Romantic poets as well as the general public also observed the new psychological effect and mysterious aspects of human life. Impact of French Revolution on Romantic poets. Now we will one by one see that what impact this revolution made on the Romantic poets. The first one is William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth was the first one to come under the influence of this revolution, and he accepted it wholeheartedly and praised and agreed to it. So all of the Romantic poets, William Wordsworth was the first one who came under the influence, who observed the French Revolution, and he was pretty much in the favor of French Revolution. He wholeheartedly accepted this revolution, agreed to it, praised to it, and we can also say that he hailed this French Revolution through his works. He first observed this revolution in the year 1791 when he went to France, where he was impressed with this revolution and also with Annette Vallon. So William Wordsworth in the year 1791 visited France, and by the time French Revolution was in its first phase. and William Wordsworth observed this revolution and he was very much impressed. And during his visit to France, William Wordsworth also fell in love to a girl named Annette Wallon, and later on they both also had a daughter. But apart from this, William Wordsworth was very much impressed and praised French Revolution. So after William Wordsworth, the second poet is S.T. Coleridge, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, right? Coleridge, just like his friend, praised and hailed the revolution, and according to him, a new life was springing in front of his eyes. Yeah, so just like William Wordsworth, just like his friend, S.T. Coleridge also liked the French Revolution. He was also influenced and impressed by French Revolution, and he believed that new life was springing in front of his eyes. So new life was raising in front of his own eyes. He believed that, and we can understand his ambition when he says, "Liberty, the soul of life shall reign." So this is the line S.T. Coleridge wrote in terms of French Revolution, in regards to French Revolution, right? So we can see by this line that he was totally impressed by French Revolution. But later on, his enthusiasm decreased when the French attacked Switzerland, a peace-loving country. Now he felt that the French are going to wrong path and also started to condemn and mock the French people. So yeah, here we can see the difference. S.T. Coleridge was very much impressed by the first phase of French Revolution, but when the French people or the French country attacked the Switzerland, which according to S.T. Coleridge was a peace-loving country, after this incident, S.T. Coleridge condemned and mocked the French people. He believed that the French people are now going on the wrong path and they are not doing it right. So now he was against the French Revolution. So he was impressed by the first phase and not by the second phase, we can say that. P.B. Shelley and Lord Byron. So Shelley was a revolutionary idealist. He observed this revolution from his childhood, and the ideas of liberty, equality and fraternity always attracted him. And the revolution was a strong force which molded his childhood of Shelley. So yes, see here we can also see that Shelley was also very much influenced and inspired by French Revolution. In fact, Shelley is also considered as the revolutionary idealist. He is known for his revolutionary idealism. And by the time French Revolution was going on, P.B. Shelley was in his childhood. He was a boy by then, and his childhood was being molded or was being shaped by this French Revolution. And in his childhood itself, in his early days itself, he observed the ideas like equality, fraternity and liberty, and he was attracted to it. We can see its impact and its effect in the poem like Queen Mab and Revolt of Islam, which also portrays the revolutionary thinking. Yes, these are the works. Queen Mab and Revolt of Islam are the works of P.B. Shelley. And in this poem, we can also see the revolutionary thinking or the revolutionary idealism of P.B. Shelley. And we can at some extent state, or we can say that due to this French Revolution, P.B. Shelley got a revolutionary idealism or a revolutionary thinking. Now after P.B. Shelley comes Lord Byron, Lord George Gordon Byron, right? That is his full name. So Lord Byron was not influenced by the earlier phase of the French Revolution. He was on the side of freedom but not on the side of liberty, and which quite seems ironical. So Lord Byron was not impressed by the first phase or by the earlier phase of this revolution, but gradually he was impressed or inspired or influenced by the second phase of French Revolution. And there is a line that he was on the side of freedom and not on the side of liberty. Now this is quite ironical and satirical as well. He is saying that he is on the side of freedom and not on the side of liberty, but actually both are the synonyms of each other, right? So this is quite ironical and satirical as well. And his works like Don Juan and Childe Harold's Pilgrimage shows his ideas on this revolution, right? Childe Harold's Pilgrimage. So in this work we can see his thinking towards French Revolution. So this was about P.B. Shelley and Lord Byron. Moving forward to next slide. Impact of French Revolution on literature, or literature after French Revolution. Now here we can see some of the points or what changes were made after French Revolution. Now you will find similar characteristics of Romantic age. Well, that is totally true. You will think that this point can be considered in the Romantic age or the characteristics of Romantic age as well. But as I told earlier, that French Revolution also kind of molded and gave a shape to characteristics of French Revolution. So you will find similarity of that characteristics into this point. That is not wrong, both are similar. The first point is that literature was centered to common people, right? The Romantic poets had seen the effects of the French Revolution, somewhere in the favor, somewhere against of it. But after observing the results and repercussions of this revolution, these poets wrote their works for common people, and hence the literature was centered to common people. All the Romantic poets took interest in the life of common people. They treated men as men and women as women, and felt for the downtrodden people or the lower class people in the society. At certain extent, it became possible, or they were interested towards the common people or downtrodden people because of this revolution. The second point, raised a call, return to nature. Now, as we know that Romantic age is known for its naturalist theme, or the William Wordsworth is known as the father of nature, father of Romanticism. And so after the completion of French Revolution or French Revolt, the Romantic poets raised a call, return to nature. And the reason is that all these Romantic poets, observed the result, the positive sides, the negative sides of French Revolution, and they thought that now we need to return, or we need to go back to nature. And for this reason, the literature of after French Revolution, or the poems, were centralized with the themes of nature, right? And for this reason, we can see that most of the poems written by all the Romantic poets has the theme of nature. And this call, this motto, return to nature, was raised by Rousseau initially. And Rousseau said a famous line which I could remember right now: man is free but still everywhere in chain. Right? So he was saying that man is born free but still he is everywhere trapped in chain. This was the ambition or thinking of Rousseau. So now the third point, interest in past. After the French Revolt or after the French Revolution, the writers and the poets of this age were fed up and tired from the tyranny, ugliness and the tightness of this materialistic world all around. So they wanted to escape this fake artificial world, and they did it with the help of their poetry. All these Romantic poets wanted to live their life happily and joyfully, and hence they went back in the past, especially we can say in the Middle Ages. And due to this, the literature also got a turn or a twist, and the literature itself went into past. Hence, the literature after Revolution broke all the rules which were set by the previous ages of English literature, right? Fourth point, elemental simplicity of life portrayed through literature. Now, the literature after French Revolution was being centralized by the elemental simplicity of life. The literature by this time used to urge and motivate people to live a simple but joyful life. In fact, all the Romantic poets were very influenced and tried to convey this message through their work. The Romantic poets, like we can see, were very much inspired by nature. Even if they go for a walk on a beach, or they see a wild flowers, they get inspired and they write poems on it. So after French Revolution, the Romantic poets urged the people of England to live a simple life and to gain happiness from the elemental simplicity of life. And the fifth and last point is that Industrial Revolution parallel to French Revolution. Now, see, Industrial Revolution is one of the significant point that took place in Victorian era. But we can say that the Industrial Revolution laid its foundation from Romantic age itself. And hence both were going parallel, not too much parallel. After Romantic age, Industrial Revolution gained its pace, but we can say that some extent, at little initial stage, it had a connection between French Revolution and Industrial Revolution, and both were parallel. So these were the points, or these were the certain ideas, or these changes were made after French Revolution in literature. I hope you guys might understand what I'm trying to say. And please like, share and subscribe my video. So thank you. This was all about the impact of French Revolution on literature. Thank you. Have a good day.